Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pre-Diet Podcast. I am Allie Virtue. I am a functional medicine nutritionist and the owner of Parkside Nutrition. And with the Pre-Diet Podcast, the whole goal is to help you get ahead, learn some knowledge that's really going to help you in your health journey before you feel the need to, honestly, hire a nutritionist or do a random diet on Monday. We don't need that. We're just going to learn about some things that are really going to move the needle for you as far as what your health goals are and how to accomplish them. So in this episode, we have Jared Virtue, my lovely husband. He is back for a part 2. Looking so cute. And this time we are talking about grocery shopping, meal prepping, how to really make your dollars go further. Also, what I think is the biggest takeaway from this episode is how to get your grocery budget, no matter what it is, to get more aligned with your values and your health goal that you have in mind. Because a lot of people will say like it's just really too expensive to be healthy or really expensive to be healthy or eat healthy. And I'm not saying that's not true, but there are things that you can do about it. And I think he does a fantastic job. He is the head chef of our household, head grocery shopper, and I could never do what he does. He makes our grocery budget stretch so much further. So he is sharing all of his knowledge. Some of his knowledge, I feel like we just scratched the surface, to be honest. So we are just scratching the surface of Jared's strategies for better grocery shopping and making your dollars go further. All right, we are back for part 2 with my lovely husband, Jared Virtue. Like I mentioned in the first part, he is the head chef at our house. He is also chief executive grocery shopper and meal prepper of the house. And this is because I'm capable of cooking, for the record. I can. He just likes it more. And he's good at it. So, we play to our strengths in this house. And so he takes the reins on that side. But I also joke on social media, I don't think he steals. I know he's a very moral person. But he comes home with like the best deals after grocery shopping. And I just always want to pick his brain. And people are like, how on earth do you come home with so many groceries and you've only spent like $50 at Safeway? So this will be very practical, diving into Jared's brain of how do you get the most out of your grocery budget. But for a little bit of background, Jared, generally frugal person, if I'm right. And then your dad also was a grocery store manager, right? So that formed a lot of your kind of backbone for thinking about this stuff. But share a little bit about your mindset when it first comes to, how you think about shopping, groceries, what's going through your brain when you enter the grocery store.
Yeah. Well, first I'd say cooking is also collaborative, though. I mean, you taught me the magical thing of roasting vegetables, which is a game changer to get that volume of vegetables ready to consume. But specifically going into the grocery shopping, and I grew up in a grocery store often, since my dad has his full career with I guess he was with Sprouts for a little bit, but majority of it with Rayleigh's in Bel Air, which is a private owned grocery chain in the California area. And so we used to play in his office. He had this calculator, printed out things, and we acted like we ran the store, and went around and made friends with everyone in the store. But yeah, so spent a lot of time in grocery stores, things that my dad taught me, and part of it also from his lens. He's the youngest of 12, so very, very large family. And my grandpa, his dad, he was a farmer, and then eventually was had a custodial for a school. But they had, I also grew up running through my grandpa's cornfields in Galt, California, and he had pigs and chickens, and there's still there was a pig that ate my Batman figure, so there's still that the I don't know what I'm saying, but pigs are great, they're delicious, so that just
that
don't
farmer, that family history as a farmer, plus moving on, almost kind of like the evolution of like growing the food yourself. Your dad then runs a grocery store, manages it. And that was pretty impactful for you as far as how you think. Because I always give you crap of like, what's the price per unit on this? Because you're like, no, this brand is actually better to buy because it's this, cents per dollar or cents per ounce. versus another brand is less if you think about it in portion sizes. And that is just something that never really crossed my mind. And so you maximize our grocery. I mean, I feel irresponsible going with you grocery shopping because it's always like probably 50% more expensive because I'll just grab this and that. And you're incredibly disciplined when it comes to sticking to like what's on the list, what's on sale, it's not on sale, or you track prices really just mentally, right? I mean, you never really write down, yeah, you mentally like, oh, I know the price for, the mixed nuts at Costco. And you're like, it's gone up by $2. No, we'll give it a skip for this week, which I just find absolutely like mind blowing because I can't track all that in my brain. Or maybe I just don't try because you do it so well. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I'd say similarly, there's, you got to find the right strategy or method that works well for you. And I've always enjoyed numbers. I've always enjoyed doing math in my head and calculating things. I've like percentages and portions.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all things that excite me, we'll say. They're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad, he taught me things of, the non-name brand stuff as equivalent as the name brand stuff. So I haven't had that gravitation towards, say, a name brand
Mm-hmm.
type of product. And as you mentioned, like price per unit was something my dad taught me was, how much are you paying per
Mm-hmm.
ounce for something? And so that, side of looking at buying something more on a wholesale volume versus a smaller portion
Mm-hmm.
side and what's that price that you're paying has been part of it. And then my dad was always one of you shop the ads,
Yeah.
that's what you shop. And it was less about I want this item and it was more of
Mm-hmm.
a game of, well, here's what's on sale, what can we make with that? And
Yeah.
again,
That's
there's a lot,
huge.
yeah. And there's also I always want to have the caveat though of like uh I was homeschooled up to high school, and so we
Mm-hmm.
had to make our own food throughout the day. Is what mom, mainly mom because dad was working, taught us. So there was opportunities to learn those skills,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as like I said, my dad was a grocery and giving us um, that support. So
Mm-hmm.
that's always been part of it is looking at what can I make with what's on sale, and then if I like something, let's say a specific type of ground beef, then if it's on sale, buy more to freeze it. But then learning those different habits of like, okay, well if I freeze it, then I need to put it in the fridge to thaw out for
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 days, and creating different rhythms and systems around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's taken a lot of time though, and that's where back to like, give yourself grace, give yourself time, give yourself ability
Mm-hmm.
to learn these different skills because it just doesn't happen all at once. My uh, going back to part one, I had a meal plan all 4 years in college, so I didn't have to cook as much then because I was a RA for 3 years, and then
Yeah.
my freshman year I had it was mandatory to have the meal plan. So once I graduated, it was a lot of black bean patties, chicken patties, uh, let's see, yeah, spaghetti. Um,
If that's not an insight into Jared's brain that you had a meal plan in college just for efficiency's sake, not even like health sake, like health goals, right?
yeah, it
And
was
just like,
time.
yeah, it was a time efficiency thing. But I think that's a great point. And like you point out all these little other decisions to make, but that is so real when I think people are absolutely surprised until they start to work with a nutritionist or someone that actually is like kind of auditing these habits of like, why didn't this happen? Why didn't you cook your lunches for this week? Oh, well, I didn't meal prep. Why didn't we meal prep? Or I didn't cook this night. Why didn't we do that? Oh, because I forgot to thaw the meat and then that was going to take too long, so I ordered pizza instead. And I'm like, or I had a PB&J. I'm like, okay, that's what that kind of call it. Failure is a strong word, but like failure to make the thing happen, that's what it trailed back to. But that happens so much more than what people think. And when I make example meals for people, And they're like, well, does this come with a grocery list of like everything I need to buy that week to like eat exactly like this? And I was like, I have included that in the past, but I don't think it's very helpful, because if you do that, you're probably going to have food waste, because hopefully my meals are pretty filling. So you probably won't finish them. You're also going to cook all brand new food. So that's a lot of more decisions, and versus if just you're just trying to incorporate more, chicken for dinner or leaner protein options or whatever it is. Like that seems a little bit more tactile, and like you can do that and like just focus on implementing that. But you shared that kind of staying focused on what's on sale, sticking to your list. You're incredibly disciplined. What is on our list gets bought, and almost no other extra things, which is why I don't go with you most of the time, because I see other things that I just want them, Jared. I deserve them. And that's kind of one of our inside jokes of when I say I deserve it, it's in a very sarcastic, like 4-year-old voice, because I feel like we deserve to be very healthy, not necessarily deserve to have all of our wants and whims that randomly come up. But Jared, what also goes through your head when you are grocery shopping? Say, because you go to multiple places to find the best deal, right?
I would, yes and no. I would say, back to like what's my lens that I look through value wise.
Mm-hmm.
There's a component of time,
Mm-hmm.
that I want to dedicate towards shopping.
Mm-hmm.
And there's back to what you just mentioned of like what's on the list, what are things that we like to have, what are
Mm-hmm.
those aspects. Then there's the plan of, what is on sale, looking at, the different places to shop. And then the,
Mm-hmm.
overall, as you mentioned, costs. I'd say that's a big part that's helpful when it comes to having a plan is,
Mm-hmm.
how much is going to be my grocery basket
Mm-hmm.
is a lens that I find really helpful to look at. So, for example, last year when eggs slowly climbed and climbed and
Mm-hmm.
climbed, price wise, we stopped
Mm-hmm.
buying eggs. I guess when I say I decided to stop
You
buying
stop buying.
eggs because the price of that for the overall cart didn't fit the
Mm-hmm.
parameters of
Mm-hmm.
what goal I set for other things. And I also look at it as substitutes. So if eggs are going to cost me this much, but I
Mm-hmm.
could get some really nice ground beef, I'll
Mm-hmm.
just get more nice ground beef versus the
Yeah.
eggs. If I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at that as the overall price for the cart, or if I'm looking, which you've helped me with this, I would say more so is,
Yeah.
you know, the overall protein component of the cart versus,
Yeah.
the the vegetables, the fruit, the overall. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know macro math still very well. It's not math.
Mostly what I pick on, yeah, clue people in on like what is my feedback for Jared? Very financially like sound mind, obviously, and like is a whiz at math and like calculating the average cost of like the number. Like like when I was asking you about this stuff yesterday, you knew how much you spent at each store, but not only that, like the number of items at each store, and like, oh yeah, this was the most expensive item, and all of these things that like again I just hadn't really paid attention to. But I forgot where I was going with that. What were we just talking about before that? Oh, what do I bug you about? Yeah, the things I bug Jared about or give you feedback on, based on your shopping. And this has been guided by your Dr. Era's, and the lab work, because I never really harped too much of like, hey, we should have more fish or we should buy leaner proteins or things like that. So again, we've kind of layered this stuff in as like it was deemed kind of medically necessary to see your cholesterol go down. And that was mainly through being really intentional to have like leaner meats. It was kind of the option of like, do we spend money on a fish oil or do we try to have fish 3 times a week? Like, what's the balance there that we're okay with? And so again, I think a lot of people start really extreme of like, we're all organic, we're buying all the organic meats and like all of the things, which can be very helpful, but also very overwhelming, very hard on your budget, and might not be very sustainable for you. Versus we just kind of generally ate more whole foods, ate out less, and then as your lab work kind of came back of like, oh, we actually need to be more serious about this. It's great that you've done all these changes, but like this is the next step to see the next level of improvement in your blood work and things. So the things that I have harped on is usually let's buy leaner meats, because you would buy the ones that were on sale. And then when I would
Mm-hmm.
highlight like how much protein versus the grams of fat per serving, sometimes those are backwards, which is also a big mistake that people will make, like in a weight loss journey as well. So health aside, weight loss aside, or like either goal that you're after, paying attention to that. So like pork, ground breakfast sausage wasn't really on our list anymore.
80/20.
Eggs, yeah, 80/20 is just, it's not really the leanest that I would love. We mixed in, I think I got eggs back on there because they were part of some of my more health goal minded things. The egg yolks were really what I was looking for. But being okay with within reason, within your health parameters of like what's really important for you to spend your budget on versus other things. You are incredibly disciplined about shopping to what's on sale, and if it does go up and it's not like a necessary food, I guess that's what I'm getting at, of like what's necessary in the budget. And we do need protein and we do need produce. Like those ones are very much staples, and people will be shocked about probably how bare our pantry is, or like there's just not a lot of extras because we are so focused on like the bulk of our grocery budget going towards our main meals. We have a couple snack options, but like there's not a ton, and I think that's mostly because we're very like functionally minded as far as like this gets us fed. We're not total robots. We do like food. We do like it to taste good. But what else comes to mind that helps you kind of maximize your dollar?
Well, yeah, I guess we could talk maximize dollar, and I can some other thoughts too I had. Yeah, the using the apps are helpful. I'd say the main places I go to is Costco, Safeway, Fred Meyer, and grocery outlet. And I'd say Fred Meyer and Safeway are substitutes for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I'm going to, Costco and Safeway, or Costco and Fred Meyer, and then grocery outlets splashed in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where having the apps is helpful to, like Safeway will have like a $10 off 50 shop, or sometimes $5 off $35 shop. And then they also
Mm-hmm.
have the points you can accrue and use that towards getting some dollars off. And then, they're
Mm-hmm.
tracking your shopping habits. So they want to bring you back in
Oh,
the
that's a
store.
that's
And
a great point.
yeah,
That's a great point.
so, they're wanting to, get you back in the store. So they'll give you a coupon on something that's in there at a certain price because they know that's what you're going to
Mm-hmm.
be willing to buy it at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that discipline of knowing, like, if I'm going to buy, let's just say, chicken thighs, like my target's $2 a pound on it until then I'm going to hold off on buying the chicken thighs. Well, they keep it at $3 a pound, and they'll give you a coupon at $2.50. Well, I'm holding out, unless there's no other protein source that I can add
Mm-hmm.
at a certain price point that I'm looking for. And then,
Mm-hmm.
they give me a good $1.99 or less. Like recently, this last shop was $1.49 for up to 5 pounds. That's what
Wow.
I went for and bought. And I think that's a challenge though. For me, I look at it as different seasons. Like I was okay with a season of time for us to not eat eggs. But for other folks, that might be more challenging too for their time and energy because they're used to that routine of having that as something to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So, like again, that this is what works for me, where I'm okay waiting until I have a
Mm-hmm.
certain point that I'm gonna purchase something. Um,
Yeah.
and then, like I said, using the apps will help. And also too, you can get lost in the apps and spend a lot of time in them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just technology in general. Setting some good parameters of how much time you're going to use it makes a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference. But it can make things easier shopping wise too. Of having certain grocery lists saved of items that you like to buy, as well as you can look at your past receipts too and see what did I pay for something at a certain price point versus now in the future. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's also back to that meal planning side of things too, is if you walk in the grocery store and everything's available for you to purchase, I mean, I
Yeah.
think grocery stores have like, I can't remember what my dad told me, but like 50,000 different items or something crazy like that. There's no way
A
you can
lot.
keep track of all those prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's 10 or 15 core items that you like and continually buy, I would say more or less, Allie, that's what I can keep track of in my head, price
That
wise.
makes sense.
And
Yeah,
you could
that makes
also
sense.
like write that in a note in your phone, if you don't
Hmm.
want to be strange like me and keep that in the back of your head.
Yeah.
Um, so those are some things though, or like Fred Meyer, their thing recently has been that they mail you some paper coupons again as like the come
Hmm.
back to the store, we haven't seen you in a
Yeah.
while. Uh, and it's I think also a mindset side that can be challenging for folks too is, like I don't need to use paper coupons, or I can afford not to
Hmm.
use paper coupons, which is fine. You can pay what you
Yeah.
want to pay, but those are just different ways that been optimal to pay for things. And then, like I said, having a purpose of items. Like I have a set items that I
Hmm.
focus on to get at Costco, certain items that I get at Fred Meyer, Safeway, and then grocery outlets more of the they have a really good price on like the non-dairy vegan cheese type of
Yeah.
um,
Specialty items
products.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spices,
Hmm.
sauces, and that's where that can help lower those prices too for those certain items. But that's why I said when you said like you shop a lot of stores to get the lowest price, it's also helpful
Hmm.
having certain stores that where to find things, what the prices are, how to navigate the stores too. That way you don't go down
Hmm.
certain aisles that then you do end up getting more
Buying all the
things.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, like Costco, if I want to take a slower time and buy some more stuff, I go on the back
Yeah.
aisle.
Otherwise,
Uh,
just like stay focused.
yeah, otherwise I'm just beelining straight to produce, from the get-go.
Hmm.
Um, so those are part of points of just reflecting and understanding yourself. And I think that's
Hmm.
a good question to be like, why did I end up with more stuff today? You know,
Did I come
because
in hungry? Yeah. Did I come into
yeah,
the store hungry? Are we really low on food? I think I definitely buy more out of emotion if we could let ourselves get really low on stuff. And I feel like I've just been like eating the most random things out of the fridge. I'm much more likely to buy like, I need this, I need this, I need this. Cause I felt, you know, I roll because like I felt more deprived this week of like, I just had weird meals, right? I just tried to, and I, fine with that. That's, part of the game that happens versus yeah if we can be a little bit more optimal, but I do see that a lot with clients of like they just didn't get to the grocery store in time and meals got weird and we got eating out more and things kind of get derailed from there. But um let's see, I love when you talk about like I make fun of you for it, but the price per ounce or the price per portion. But I think that's a really insightful point because we kind of use this example. A friend of ours was talking about like really liking. I think like it's a more natural brand of chips at Costco or something. And it's like a higher quality, potato chip, which is great. But also I think about one, it's in Costco portion, so it's big. It's one big bag. So once it opens, like it's going to go stale within, X number of days. So there's that. And then you always point out like how many servings can I get in this one purchase of one food? How long does that food last? And I think the example we were talking about yesterday was 7 pounds of cabbage. And for most households, they're like, my God, that is a ridiculous amount of cabbage. But when you do cook raw food, like it does get smaller, so you can eat more of it once it's cooked. It's not too crazy. But also with your diet predominantly being meat and vegetables, and mine certainly is very similar. I just have a little bit more starch than you probably include. That whole 7 pounds of cabbage costs you $3.50, right? And it's
St.
probably
Patty's Day.
yeah, St. Patty's Day sale.
Yeah.
But that's probably like I don't, not quite 30 servings. I don't, did we do the math on that? How many servings do you think 7 pounds of cabbage is?
No, we didn't. But that's one thing,
It's a lot.
specifically with the Safeway app. If you
Hmm.
order a order to pick up or they deliver it to you, they'll list out how many
Hmm.
servings of protein or
That's interesting.
vegetables or everything
That's
that
really
you
helpful.
order, which is cool because that was one thing,
Hmm.
which I don't know the numbers now off the top of my head, but one time we calculated how much meat and vegetables we typically eat per week, which then also
That's a
helps to
lot.
know too if we're
Yeah.
flying and leaving for a trip and we only
Hmm.
need 4 days worth of food versus 7, that helps us not have
Hmm.
as much food to spoil. But it has
Yeah.
been a trial and error again, where like one that comes to mind is I used to buy the big container of cocoa aminos because the price per
Yeah.
unit is significantly less. I don't know off the top of my head, but let's just say it's 30% less
Yeah.
per unit versus a smaller container of cocoa aminos. Well, that container, being in the fridge, if you wanted to keep it fresh, especially if you're going
Yeah.
to have that large of a container that may last you 6 months, that's a lot of fridge
Mhm.
space to take up for it.
Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile to have a smaller container of that.
Hmm.
Otherwise, every meal is going to have cocoa aminos in it.
Yeah.
And one
And
thing I've learned from being married to Allie is Allie needs some variety
little bit,
with
a
different
little bit,
sauces. Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm pretty trash panda. Like I'll eat a lot of things a lot of times and not be too fussy. But yeah, every now and then I hit a limit of like, oh, I need another flavor. Um, for sure. And I think that's really important to keep in mind for your household. Some people are definitely like they need variety. They don't do well with a lot of leftovers. Sometimes they really enjoy to cook. So that's why I don't ever really have like a blanket approach to like meal prep of like this is how you have to do it. You really have to figure out what works for your household and yeah, what your spouse is willing to put up with
yeah.
and what their kind of non-negotiables are and what hits their limit. I mean, Jared and I think we're already married because we were living in our second house, but I don't really love pork that much. And you bought like two 10-pound, it was like pork loin or something, right? And you told me you bought it, and I was like, oh, well, can we at least chop it up? And so we don't have to thaw 10 pounds of pork at a time. And you're like, I already froze it. We're having 10 porks at a time, 10 pounds of pork at a time. And I was like, no. That
Oops.
was, again, one of my lines of like, please don't make me do that again. Let's add some variety in. But yeah, that was my threshold. A little of
I
that,
I think
we're
that
fine.
that was a good one to mention because I was gonna add too, like with cabbage, with getting 7 pounds of cabbage, I got the
Hmm.
really small cabbage heads though,
Mm.
and cabbage
Yeah.
does have a better shelf life in the fridge versus getting
Hmm.
like two big heads of cabbage,
Yeah.
um, where now I
Have to cut
can
it up.
we're still maybe eating a lot of cabbage throughout the week, but now I'm cooking
Hmm.
it throughout the week versus having to deal with one bigger portion of it. And you've done a good job with
Hmm.
that, with like the protein side of how do you cut it up and freeze
Hmm.
it versus having one massive chunk.
Yeah. Or we've done that with soups. And so you could have like roasted cabbage for part of it. And that's really easy to make like cabbage steaks and just like slice it up really quick. Takes almost no time. Oil, salt, pepper, things like that. Roast it. And then the other half you could, use it in a soup and then freeze the soup. And so you have a little bit of a variety with one big ingredient in bulk, but you're not totally making yourself too crazy. My
And
next
I think
question kind of go ahead.
I was going to say one more thing on the bulk that is challenging though is if you buy
Hmm.
more bulk, like psychologically it's a lot easier to use more of it or also potentially
Hmm.
waste more of it. So you have to keep that in mind of like how much further ahead I'm getting.
Mm.
And you've done a good job teasing me on that where I've looked back and we've used this much ketchup. And I know that Costco,
Yes.
at least once or twice a year, they run a coupon on the ketchup.
Yeah.
And so I'll
Yeah.
buy like 12 bottles of ketchup because that's what we go through over the course of the year. But then there's
Hmm.
also a function of like, well, do we go through 12 bottles because we have 12 bottles? Uh, and so you have to also, you know, be
You
aware
got to
of
update
that.
your facts on your
Yeah.
spouse and what they eat. When we first met, I was eating a lot of egg whites and ketchup. And so Jared probably programmed, Allie eats a lot of ketchup. I should always have ketchup on hand. And so would buy literally like 12 of like the party size um, ketchup at Costco. And like that was always stocked and ready. And I was like, I don't know if we have to do that anymore. I've calmed down a little bit on my ketchup consumption, but just ask your spouse, like, is that something that they always want on hand? And that kind of goes back and forth of, I think, probably just relying on your communication with things of trying to be proactive about talking about that stuff before, someone loses their crap about, oh, I can't eat another piece of lettuce if we're going to do this or that. And just making sure that we're not getting too bored with things. That's one of my questions I always ask clients of like, how are you feeling with your food? Are you bored? Are you fine? Do we need to, add some variety in this week before we lose our mind next week type of thing? And I think that's one of my favorite things of like, we keep a note on our phones that everybody in the house can access. So if I go down for lunch and we don't have any of this, and I can just like add it to our list. And so whoever is going to the store, which is usually Jared, can buy that again. Or, if we're getting bored of the same stuff, we can also say like, okay, let's make sure we buy, 3 different vegetables this week. But I think that's helpful to keep the variety fresh. Absolutely. My next question that comes to mind is, do you have any, and we haven't talked about this before, but do you have any mental or like, I guess like strategies when it comes to, because you're very good about not buying a ton of extra like snacky stuff. Is there any like percentage of the budget things that come to mind of like money you spend on like core meal ingredients, percentage that you're okay with spending like on snack food, anything like that? Because I feel like a lot of the budget goes to healthier snack food versus like if we just had more filling, higher protein, higher fiber meals, like people would be pretty satisfied and we wouldn't need as many meals or as many snacks. Because I always hear that of like, I need more snack ideas. I'm like, I think you need better meals if that's the case. But do you have any tips there as far as like how to work the budget so that makes sense?
Yeah, a few thoughts on that. Um, One, that this came in college because I had to keep things a lot tighter budget wise. But that's part what moved me away from, say, like eating out or fast food, was I just did the math and was like, okay, I could make this rice and
Mm-hmm.
bean, taco meal, um,
Mm-hmm.
with some cilantro and other things. I think at the time it was like $1 per meal versus if I ate out at the time it was like $5. So I'm like, okay, well that's
Yeah.
5 times
Yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't want to spend that much for every meal, or I can have this many meals where I eat out.
Mm-hmm.
So it made eating out more special. And then
Yeah.
also, having things that I've learned that I don't value for the price that I'm paying. So one thing like eating out wise is drinks. For me, drinks were not something that I valued a lot. To have a, iced tea or a coffee or I never grew up as a big soda drinker. But for me, I looked at that of, I could buy a drink and bring a drink with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot less expensive than buying the drink at the restaurant type of thing. So that same mentality, I'd say, is carried over into the grocery shopping side of, focusing on the core pieces of the meal, getting that into the cart first. And then when it comes to the other additions with the snack, food, or the um, really nice spice or sauce that you like, that was always secondary. And also from a more technical, like shrinkflation, you may have heard that term, or um, just packaging marketing standpoint, it's a lot
Mm-hmm.
easier to change packaging and lower how much ounces are in the package than it is if you're looking at protein or vegetables. Like, you're carrying it, you're holding it, it's very tangible, versus
Mm-hmm.
packaging can very much make you feel like you're buying the same amount of quantity and you're actually buying a lot
Mm-hmm.
less. And that's been a
Is
big
there,
challenge.
can you give an example of that? Are you talking about like buying the pre-shredded carrots versus buying the carrots in bulk, volume or amount of carrots you get versus like what you pay for it because it's more processed, like they're already processed and shredded and washed for you versus like buying the bulk
Uh,
bag of carrots? Or is there another example
yeah, both. Yeah,
of that?
I could use both examples. As like, one would be, okay, let's say carrots are 70 cents a pound versus the ones that are already sliced up and ready to go are
Mm-hmm.
$1.20
Mm-hmm.
difference per pound. And so the question is, like, for me to slice up the carrots or shred the carrots, is it worth paying? Um,
Mm-hmm.
what is that? I don't. I say I'm good
Yeah,
with math.
math more.
Math.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say I'm good with math off the top of my head, but now I'm under pressure with
Yeah.
was that 70% more? I should have used the math that was easier to say it's 100% more.
Yeah. No
Um,
worries.
but that's a big difference and
Mm-hmm.
change. Like, is the input worth that time saving?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the one that's going to say one is better versus the other. It depends on the situation. Or, like, if we're
Mm-hmm.
on a trip and I don't have a knife to be able to cut something up, the
That's what you're
shredded
gonna
carrots
buy.
are what you're going to go with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I was saying more of like, a few years ago, it may have been a 16-ounce Doritos that you're buying
Mm-hmm.
for $3 or $4
Hmm.
off the snack shelf. Well, now that's not 16 ounces of Doritos anymore. It's maybe
Mm.
14 or 12 ounces, and you're still paying three or
But the
four
price is the
bucks.
same.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
packaged goods, it's a lot easier for them to, make it look like you're buying the same amount, but you're actually getting less. And that's back to focusing on that price per unit. Can help
Hmm.
determine whether is that something I value enough to pay that much for it, or
Hmm.
is that something that is now out of the budget for now, or out of the basket,
Yeah.
or I have to wait till it's on sale at a certain price point. And that's the other part too, is like seeing different themes, like Costco, for example. There's a variety of products that they have that they don't do a coupon once a year for, but there's other
Hmm.
products that they do. And that's as much as you can, if you like those products, to be able to get some extra of them. Again,
Hmm.
that can be challenging though too, because if you have more, you'll use more, or you could waste more, or you have to have
Yes.
storage
Yeah.
for it. But that's
Hmm.
also too, that part of the challenge is also what I would say is having an opportunity fund. So having a
Yes.
little extra cushion, um, where you can buy extra of something that you like when it goes on sale and then store it.
Hmm.
Um, Again, some people may not have that ability factors wise, whether it's pantry space or freezer space, or have that extra
Hmm.
cushion in the budget. But that's a strategy too, where you can be able to get some more of those things that you um, do like, but also know
Hmm.
yourself.
Yes.
If your portion
Well, I think
control is a challenge, don't put yourself in a situation where you're making it harder on yourself.
yes, absolutely. And I think that kind of goes back to like the chip analogy I was not analogy, but example I was using earlier of like it might be the better price to buy the chips per serving per the nutrition label of like, oh, I get more servings in this big bag. But especially in a house, I would imagine with like teenagers or kids or someone who's learning in the learning stages, which can be adults too, but learning their portion sizes, they're probably not going to eat actual portion size. And so by buying it in that form, if we have trouble regulating that food to its like intended portion size, I won't even say intended because you put it in bigger bags so people will go through it more quickly. But if you're buying it in that form, it's going to be harder and more pressure on you to like moderate your portions versus yeah we're going to go through things more quickly versus maybe it is worth the extra 10 cents or whatever it is to buy the big bag of chips that has little bags inside of it or the variety pack so like our portion size is set at one small bag of chips instead of the big bag that's really easy to go through. And again, I think my semi naive brain when it comes to like moderating portion sizes for kids and those types of snacks and things, maybe that helps, maybe it doesn't. But I think any time that you can kind of set those natural barriers to quote the bad habits or the habits that we're trying to let go, I think that's really helpful because then you don't have to think about like, don't eat too many chips. It's you grab a small bag out of there and then you're done. And that's it. That's your serving. You don't have to think about it. Maybe it's a slightly bit more, but we were kind of talking about this and I'm a big visual person and maybe I'll try to get this image up on the screen for everybody to watch. But I kind of think of a square, and almost I was we use a lot of sports analogies, but like think of it as like a court. So yeah, it's a rectangle, but say it's fairly even as far as a square. But like you can only dominate probably like half of the court at a time or two areas out of four. So if we have four corners on this, and I think of kind of the values that come to mind of people either value their time, money versus effort, and then how you feel slash your health goals. So if we have those kind of like four things, time in one corner, money in one corner, effort, say health goals slash how you feel, I feel like you can usually have two, but you usually can't quite have it all if you're not willing to put or not willing to or not able to get all of your time dedicated to the thing that you really want. Usually that means you have to put more money into it. So you can kind of dominate part of it, but usually it's hard to do both. And if you don't have, the money to dedicate towards it, like you've mentioned in a lot of your examples of like you're fine with cooking it yourself. Like we're not going out to eat as much. One, expense wise, it doesn't make sense when we can make meals that are just so cheap compared to going out to eat. That doesn't really make sense, but we also have more time to dedicate towards this stuff. A busy single mom might not have those same set of resources. So I always think it's just a trade off. And again, trying to figure it out instead of just staring at the wall and saying this is a problem. It's like, okay, how can I pull these other levers to kind of get farther and get closer to that health goal that I say is really really important to me. But the cash fund is a great cash being an opportunity fund is a great point, because a lot of people say, oh, just buy in bulk, but that's not always available to everybody. So that's probably conditionally appropriate to some people versus others. I thought you had a really good example of, I have it in my notes as Jared's math. So, because in part one, we have it as really talking about your story, how that your health relates to your business and performance in that way. But you had a great example. And again, I think numbers paint such a good picture of if you work 9 to 10 hours a day and you see 10 to 20% improvement in your work capacity within that same amount of time, right? That equals, 90 minutes to 180 or 3 hours worth of more time to be good at work. And again, that generates hopefully more revenue for you versus people will often say, like, I can't, I don't have time. I have to eat out. I have to order food. I have to have it delivered. How did that kind of come to mind? Did you see that play out? Is it just something you notice when you're talking and working with other people when they cite like the need or the requirement for them to eat out or order food or things like that? How did that kind of realization come about? And feel free to go over that again to paint it in your words as far as the numbers.
Yeah. Back to, look at values, outcomes, that as a lens to look at things. And, for me, eating out is easier to not have as an option just because of potentially eating something that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be the proper fuel for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Yeah.
aspect makes it easier. And then versus, others may not have that as a barrier. So having a really well cooked, delicious meal from somewhere is
Mm-hmm.
back to your scale of how to weigh things.
Mm-hmm.
And then one part I came to realize, fast food's not as fast as you think. And that's something I'd
Mm-hmm.
encourage folks is just timing yourself, even just between like navigating the Uber Eats app or, whichever app is needed to order food from a place to get the order submitted, versus, also like driving to, say Taco Bell or some place that you like to eat. And how much time does it take you to obtain your food?
Yeah.
And I realized it, for me, it was actually the investment of time to roast vegetables, cook meat, have a salad, whatever those dishes are, and then bringing that to work and then being able to stay and focus at work was far more effective, that aspect from time standpoint. But also just looking at it, you're mentioning the math side of it of if I eat well and focus on having those meals and preparing them a certain way, if it gives me 10 to 20% performance in that area of my life, that's quite a bit of leverage to be able to get that 90 minutes to 180 minutes of extra capacity, let's just say that for the math, versus
Right.
if I ordered food and I paid extra for that, and let's just say I spend an hour a day to make food or obtain food, and let's say ordering food saves me half that time. Well, that only gives me 30 minutes of my day back. So I
Yeah.
just look at different decisions of like how much more leverage does it give me, or how much time does it save me, and
Mm-hmm.
is it really moving the needle? And I think that's something for folks to look at is just to see what in their areas of life, how much more, because I think often we can think, well, going to the grocery store or cooking can be a lot more effort, and it,
Mm-hmm.
it can be. It depends on how you create the framework of decisions. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
like decision fatigue is something that I value avoiding, and keeping things simple and having similar meals. I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that versus having variety for me can create more exhaustion. Or if I want variety, I want to create enough time to enjoy the variety versus feeling like I have to be rushed through it. And that's where, with ordering food, that could be, a lot more time to be able to click everything that you want. And if you're in a rush and you don't have time to enjoy that meal, then it
Mm-hmm.
feels like that leverage of time may not be best suited for it.
Absolutely. That's why I'm taking notes. But yeah, just a framework of decisions, you value, and I also share this value of like decreasing decisions. And so someone might look at what we eat and be like, God, that's really boring. But like we value really what our food does for us versus the the finite value of the food on the plate. It might not look very exciting, but I would argue it also makes eating out way more special, way more interesting. It's not that our food is bland and it sucks, but it just makes it more exciting. And I also argue this with not with clients, but it's just like as a topic in general of like when life is going really well, if we're interested in the life we're creating or the life that we're pursuing, usually food doesn't need to be so amazing. It doesn't need to be fireworks all the time. It needs to make me feel good so I can go do the life things that I'm genuinely excited for. And food can be a part of like life and culture and memories for sure. But yeah, having a good framework of decisions. What do we want ultimately? What decisions can I eliminate? And kind of a value proposition of like, what am I really valuing? Does this food, this particular meal need to be fireworks? Or does it just need to get me through my lunch break and on to the next thing? I think that's, yeah, deciding what your ultimate goal is, or the thing you value most is a great point to kind of help
Here's
people navigate that.
yeah, here's another example I'll use. I guess you can define this as Jared math. Is when I was still eating carbs and hadn't removed that um, portion of my diet. And sorry if I'm making this too broad of saying carbs, Allie. You're probably like, it's more
Yeah.
precisely.
Starchy carbs.
There we go.
Yeah.
We used to buy. Um, you could look at like buying gluten-free bread. Well, if gluten-free
Mm-hmm.
bread serves a purpose of making a sandwich because you're on the go, you
Yeah.
want it to be something you can hold and eat,
Mm-hmm.
then from that value standpoint, it's serving a purpose. If you're looking at purely
Yeah.
though, as I'm buying the gluten-free bread as part of that area of my macros with carbs, well, there's a lot of things
Yeah.
that can serve that purpose. Rice could, potatoes could. Again, I leave this up to the experts like Allie. Sometimes I don't get these categories correct. But that's something like I've talked to folks about too, is like if you're looking
Mm-hmm.
at substitutes, well, the energy of cooking rice or the time or the mental space, if you look at
Yeah.
what was the rice I just recently bought for you? It was 40 cents a pound
Yep.
versus a pound of gluten-free bread is probably I might get this wrong, but like $8. I mean,
You're pretty close. Yeah.
that's a huge delta for, and again, this is not calorie for calorie matched and other aspects. But just to look at that, that's a big difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And, is that energy to make the rice, and can the rice serve the same purpose within your life, your diet, your taste, all those different areas?
Mm-hmm.
That may be the way to go versus the gluten-free bread. I think that goes back to your question too, and you said about snacks, like how do you make certain
Yeah.
decisions? Is that
I,
snack worth that much more of your, trading your energy and
mm-hmm.
time at work? You all work really hard for your paycheck. Or
Mm-hmm.
can I still fulfill an aspect, have a good meal, something tasty, or maybe it's I pay a little bit more for those cocoa amino sauce on the rice that
Mm-hmm.
adds that extra delicious taste, and I'm still paying a lot less than say the gluten free bread.
That is a great point. I hope people, I kind of want to say that stuff again, just so we really hit that point home of like the value that gluten free, and this is different for everybody. So we're not saying like don't buy gluten free bread or gluten free bun, but, and this is great. We have a great example living with us is my mom. She's retired. Being the most budget conscious in her situation is not her top priority. Like she needs pretty convenient food. She eats a lot of the dinners that we cook, so we take on definitely the majority of the cooking responsibilities. But as far as when she cooks for herself, it's a lot of some freezer stuff, some things that are quick, like sandwiches or like wraps or like burgers that she can use a gluten free bun on, like a salad bag, things like that. So for busy people, but also people that just don't want to take the time. She fed two children for 18 plus years. Like she doesn't need to cook anymore. She doesn't want to. That is her 100% choice to make. So if we're busy, if the person is just not going to take the time to cook like we cook, that's totally fine. We're also going to tend to put in more time and effort versus money because we have a different budget, probably proportionally to her, to spend more money on. She's fine with buying smoked salmon and things like that, if that's a convenient convenient protein source for her. So everybody's a little bit different, but I think the gluten-free bread value, so how much you're paying per serving, because there's only so many servings you can get out of one loaf of bread, even if you just did, open face sandwiches. I think that has a lot of value, especially if someone has a job that's on the run. They need to have a very portable lunch, like a wrap or sandwich is very helpful when they're driving. Again, not the most optimal way to spend your lunch hour, but that's the reality of a lot of people's situations. So that might, make more sense to spend that much more on like the breads, the wraps and things like that. Some of those more like convenience foods per se versus rice. Yeah, that's absolute pennies per serving. And I would say the carb portion is probably, I mean, you get way more calories, way more carbs in rice versus the gluten-free option, probably. So that's way more helpful. I would say the effort to make rice is also pretty low. So it's not like we're having to go grow the rice and then, do all of that. It's still pretty minimal. But that's a great portion or great point as far as like how much money are we open to spending on snacks, especially when people are trying to be healthier. They feel like they have to buy the higher quality snacks, and just buying it because it's organic Cheetos. I don't know, like, do organic Cheetos really give you that much of a health benefit, or are they still Cheetos? Like, I don't know how much of a benefit that really gives you. Might make you feel a little bit better, like I'm trying, versus like, what if we put that dollar effort to fueling our meals to have, more protein or even better quality protein? I'd be fine with that. I think that's going to be a way better payoff versus, spending money on the most organic, fanciest snack foods. They're still snack foods. It's hard to have them really be that meaningful compared to what we can do with our meals.
Yeah, I'll go back to, sort of circles back to earlier conversation with categories, and you've helped me a lot with
Mm-hmm.
this too, where, growing up, I looked at bacon as protein.
Tell us about bacon, Jared.
I used I used to love buying the Safeway bacon that's on sale, 3 pound package, and you cook it all. For some reason, there was no, let's
No
just
portion
cook a
control with
portion
bacon.
of it and then freeze the rest or do something
Yeah,
different.
no.
And then I got blood work about cholesterol levels and having family history of high cholesterol, so that changed some
Mm-hmm.
perspective there. And also too, I'll circle back to the part one as well. As you end up at the emergency room. It's a very expensive bill that you have to pay, and health insurance has become more expensive and less benefits too. So that creates a higher cost too on that side of things. But going back to the bacon, and I viewed that as the protein area of, call it, the budget and the
Mm-hmm.
meal, and that's where Allie's helped a lot. You look at Chronometer, or look at the actual
Food tracking app.
package,
Yeah.
yeah, of protein versus fat, and that changed my brain on the math side of,
Yeah.
well, how much am I paying per pound for protein?
Yeah.
Let's say I can get the 80/20 beef on sale for $4 a pound. Now you're gonna have to help me on this. What protein to fat on that?
So what is it on bacon?
No, 80/20
Or,
beef,
I can't remember the specifics. I mean, but I always want like 2 grams of protein per 1
gram of
gram of
fat.
fat,
Yeah,
ideally. So that's pretty lean. So like bacon's not in that category. Sometimes even ground turkey might be barely in that.
sausage.
It is barely in that category, but sausage is usually way high in fat for the amount of protein you get. So bacon is like bottom of the list as far as like how to get your protein in. It's
Yeah,
like sprinkles. It's next to like peanut butter. It's high calorie way to get protein in.
but let's just say it's 80/20 is, well, how about this? I'll just do a quick Google
Quick
search
math.
here. Beef, fat, protein. So we'll actually use some live numbers here. Probably should have prepared
Real
and had
numbers.
these.
That's
Um,
okay.
so this
That's all right.
says total fat 20 grams, total protein 17 to 19. Is it really close to 1 to 1? Um,
Dang.
so if you look at that versus, say, let's say salmon, or you could even look at a less expensive fish. Salmon's 20 to 25 grams of protein to 8 to 12 grams of fat. Um, what was the fish that
Yeah.
we just had the other night?
Tilapia, super lean, almost
And
no
again,
fat.
there's looking at the lens of preferences, flavor, and all these
Yeah.
aspects. But I just want to use this. Tilapia is 23 to 26 grams of protein to 2 to 3 grams of fat.
Oh, it's
So,
nothing.
and I would say tilapia is typically $1, $2 more per pound than 80/20, and if in some cases they're the same price. And that changed
Yeah.
my perspective of, well, if my goal is to
Hmm.
maximize protein as
Yeah.
the source for this area of what I'm spending money on,
Hmm.
um,
You're not getting very much protein for that serving.
yeah, for buying, even if the 80/20 beef, let's just say, is half the price as the tilapia, I'm
Hmm.
not moving the needle in that
Yeah.
area. Or if you just want to compare it beef to beef, if I have to
Hmm.
pay, let's say 25% more for 93.7 beef, but that
Yeah.
has, you know, 40% more protein to fat, then that's a good purchase. And that helped me change that frugal mindset, and price per unit focus, add another layer to it versus just saying, well, this is the cheapest meat on sale. I'm going to buy
Yeah.
that. And also just looking at it, is this meat or is this really more fat? And actually looking at the packages, and depth. And that's where Allie helped me have that additional perspective versus
Hmm.
uh, just the price per unit.
It is. That really, I mean, painted a picture. And I know some people might be, like, what's wrong with fat? It's if it's a healthy fat and things like that. In modern life, like fats just come from a lot of different places. So if you want avocado on your ground beef and salad type of situation, there's already a lot of fat in there. And I would rather spend it on avocado versus just in the beef. So that's a personal preference, but just learning how to balance that stuff. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it kind of becomes a joke of like, oh, I'll get my protein from bacon. You're not. You're not at all. You're getting protein sprinkles. So if we pay attention to those, just how food is made and what our goal is, that really helps just make those decisions on your own. And if you are a person that really values bacon, fantastic, you can do that. And that again wasn't something I picked on really in your nutrition journey until like you'd done a lot of things and your blood work as far as like cholesterol levels hadn't improved much. You kind of plateaued as far as seeing improvement despite exercising and doing all these other wonderful things, managing stress and sleep and all that. And then it's like, okay, the next layer of things is to get more serious with the protein and choose more leaner sources and potentially less red meat, but really just leaner sources of red meat. And then you did see a lot of improvement, really significant as far as cholesterol levels. So, trial and error, but also having that objective data of the lab results instead of just saying, like, oh, this meat is bad. It's like, well, we didn't need to make this change until maybe you had those more fundamental habits on board.
Yeah, I think, that's the journey or the challenge that comes with health is it's so dynamic and it can be tough to know who to talk to or how to approach it,
Mm-hmm.
and not to you know put stress on yourself to get healthier. That defeats the purpose, or to
Yeah.
maintain where you want to be. uh, and that's where removing the starchy vegetables and carbs from my diet led me to eating more meat, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where making that change made it a huge benefit. But then I had the
Mm-hmm.
consequence of the cholesterol, and the cholesterol may not be a drag on how I feel right now today, but if I look at my family history, that's
Yeah.
something I want to not lose sight of and work on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, give yourself a lot time. Give yourself
Mm-hmm.
time to continually make these improvements and give yourself a lot of grace, and that that helps a lot versus putting a lot of
Mm-hmm.
pressure of like, I gotta figure this all out now, um,
Yeah.
today.
Slow. Yeah, slowly but steadily. But I think you had that. just to kind of round it out and also give people context. When we very first started dating, you're like, oh yeah, virtue men don't last long, because the majority of your family on your dad's side had some sort of cardiovascular event fairly early on, and I think that obviously was extra weight on your probably conscience to be like, I need to be aware of this. I can't totally ignore this just because I'm young and in theory very healthy. So I think that's always good to keep in mind of like, we're not always, you know, out here fighting for our health tomorrow or today or whatever, but we're also creating the habits because time goes by so fast. So what I'm doing now is really going to impact how I feel and operate and how resilient I am in 20, 30, 40 years. And not to mention like what your family sees. So if you have young kids, like the habits you're doing today is going to shape how their health is as well. So I don't think there's any lack of reasons to work on this stuff, but I am very biased. So, but I think it's good for more people to talk about it than just the biased nutritionist that's trying to pump you full of vegetables. But um, I think that's a great place to leave it, Jared. Thanks so much for letting us into your brain, your math brain, and all the ways that you think about this stuff because you are incredibly successful in so many areas of your life. And I am so grateful that I get a front row seat into how Jared thinks and acts and take care of yourself. I think it's honestly very inspiring and really refreshing because not a lot of people do, and I just want people to feel better. And I'm glad you're another person that people can reach out to and be supportive of their goals, desires, the life that they want to build. You do that in your work as well, and I just appreciate you sharing your perspective and knowledge with us.
Well, I love you and appreciate you having me on here. It's been a lot of fun. And as Ali said, I enjoy talking about this and providing encouragement uh, because, I said, I'm not a health professional. I'm not a guru. I don't know. I've gained knowledge in this journey, some technical knowledge, but I don't have a lot of technical knowledge, I would say, around this. It's been more of a, you know, I have a strategy, I implement it, I reflect on it, I see how it works, and um, make those adjustments and work with different professionals to help me find what's going to work best for me. And I appreciate you, Ali, for a lot of that encouragement and motivation and different direction that you provided. I mean, we didn't talk about some of my story when it came to getting back into fitness, but there was things that Ali did too, like, well, go see a physical therapist and go work on your back and see if how to get the stiffness out and get some mobility back, and a lot of different things that I've done over the years. And that's where another piece I'll add to this too is if someone comes excited to you and says, I saw this TikTok, or I read this article, or I talked to this person about XYZ health thing. Yes, there are different health things out there that may not be the biggest levers, but we don't want to shut those people down. It's good that they're getting excited about doing something for their health, even if it may not
Yes.
be the biggest lever for them. Because I go back to my journey, and that was hard when I had a health professional not really give me a support or that that direction to keep going, because it's hard to know what's going to be the next thing that makes it that much better. And I'd say just in general as a philosophy is the challenge with life, human society, whichever word you want to use, is you can put the same inputs in, but you don't necessarily get linear results.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exponential. It could be I'm walking twice a day, I'm eating a certain way, I'm getting my butt in bed at 9 o'clock, uh, you know, for day after day, week after week, month after month. But it's not till the sixth month
Yeah.
that you feel so much better, you have all this energy. Maybe you're looking to lose weight and you lost a certain amount of weight, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's it's the how do we help all come together as people to you know give that support so we can keep keep moving and get there.
Agreed. You never know when it's going to kind of be that turning point in your journey. You can't really predict it. It can even be someone saying the same thing that you've heard 5 million times, but they say it in a different way that resonates or at a time that really resonates. And I never want to discourage anyone, even if they're doing a protocol or something that I don't think is the right step. That's fine. They're trying something. The effort is there. The intent is there. And, maybe that's just their chapter 1. And chapter 5 is when they really pick up a lot of speed. And for the basics you just mentioned, like there's no free pass out of like walking or like drinking more water or something like that. Even if that gives you no tangible benefit as far as like your weight loss goal or your health goal, it doesn't really change the fact that like those are probably things that you should do in some capacity, regardless of if they accomplish your goals in the timeline that you want to see. But wonderful, Jared. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sure there'll be another episode down the road too. We'll have you back. Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that episode. Before you go, if you could do something for us, I would be forever grateful. But if you enjoyed this podcast, please listen. Scratch that. Sort of. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this latest episode of the Pre-Diet Podcast. Before you go, it would help me out so much if you could do one of the following things. That is, share this episode with a friend, maybe a family member who's trying to work on their health goals. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you could like this video, subscribe on YouTube, that would be so helpful. If you're listening to this on Spotify, like it, leave a comment, make sure you're following the show. If you could leave us a review, that would be ever so helpful in helping us grow and reach more people. And then lastly, if you want more free resources, make sure you go to parksidenutrition.com/subscribe and subscribe to the email list, the Free Shit Friday email list, to get more free resources delivered to your inbox every single Friday. Thank you so much, and I will see you on the next episode.